The night he was thrown out, the sky didn't just darken. It seemed to collapse around him. Aman stood frozen at the gate, his small bag hanging loosely from his shoulder. Behind him, the door slammed shut with finality that echoed deeper than sound. No one called him back. No one hesitated, not even for a second. The house he had grown up in suddenly felt like it had never been his. The lights inside flickered briefly. Then they went out, and just like that, Aman was alone. The street was unusually quiet. Even the stray dogs, usually barking at anything unfamiliar, kept their distance. Aman took a slow breath. It was colder than he expected. Not just the air, but something inside him, something heavier. He looked at his hands. They were trembling, but not from the cold, from the realization. He had nowhere to go. Hours passed as he walked aimlessly. Street after street blurred into one endless stretch of dim lights and silent houses. Every now and then he would stop, not because he was tired, but because he didn't know where else to go. The world suddenly felt too big, and he felt too small. Aman reached the edge of the town just before midnight. The familiar streets ended, and in front of him lay a narrow dirt path leading into the outskirts. No street lights, no people, just darkness and the sound of wind brushing through dry leaves. He hesitated, then stepped forward. The path wasn't completely unknown to him. As a child, he had heard stories about an old hut deep beyond the trees, a place no one visited anymore. Some said it was cursed. Others said it was forgotten. But one thing was certain. No one ever stayed there long. Aman wasn't thinking about stories. He was thinking about shelter. Even a broken roof would be better than the open sky. So he kept walking, each step crunching softly against the dirt, each breath visible in the cold air. The trees grew thicker, the darkness deeper, and the silence heavier. It wasn't the kind of silence that feels peaceful. It was the kind that makes you feel watched. Aman shook his head, trying to ignore the feeling, trying to stay focused. After what felt like hours, he saw it, a faint outline in the distance. Crooked, still, waiting. The abandoned hut. It stood alone, in a small clearing. The roof sagged slightly. The wooden walls looked aged and worn, but it was still standing. And right now that was enough. Aman stepped closer. The door was slightly open, not broken, not forced, just open, as if someone had left in a hurry, or expected someone to arrive. Aman frowned, but pushed the thought aside. He gently pushed the door. It creaked loudly, the sound cutting through the silence like a warning. Inside, it was darker than outside. Dust floated in the air, barely visible. Aman stepped in. The floor creaked under his weight. The smell of old wood and time filled the room. There was almost nothing inside, just a broken chair, a small table, and something strange. On the far wall, there was a mark, not a crack, not damage, a symbol carved into the wood, deep, precise, intentional. Aman walked closer, his heartbeat slowing yet somehow louder. The symbol didn't look random. It looked like it meant something, something important, something deliberate. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the carving. The wood felt colder than the air, unnaturally cold. Aman pulled his hand back instantly. Something wasn't right. This place wasn't just abandoned. It felt preserved, like time had passed around it, but not through it. Aman turned around, scanning the room again. That's when he noticed it. The table. It wasn't broken like he first thought. It was sealed. There was no dust on it. None. In a room filled with dust, the table stood clean, untouched, as if someone had wiped it recently. Aman stepped closer, slowly, carefully. His instincts told him to leave, but something stronger told him to stay. On the surface of the table, there was a single object, small, dark, and unfamiliar. A key. Aman stared at it. It didn't look old. It didn't match the hut. It looked new, almost like it had been placed there just moments ago. He swallowed hard, his mind racing. Who would leave a key in a place like this? And more importantly, what did it unlock? The wind outside suddenly grew louder. The door behind him creaked again, but this time he hadn't touched it. Aman turned slowly, his breath caught in his throat. The door was closing, not slammed, not forced, just slowly closing on its own. Aman stepped back, his heart pounding now, louder than ever. Something about this place had changed. Or maybe it had always been like this. He looked back at the key, then at the symbol on the wall, then at the door, and in that moment, he realized something chilling. He hadn't just found shelter. He had stepped into something waiting, and whatever it wasn't random. It was meant for him. Aman didn't move, not immediately. His eyes stayed locked on the door as it slowly shut. The final creak echoed longer than it should have. Then silence, complete silence. He turned back toward the table. The key was still there, unmoved, waiting. Aman took a cautious step forward, then another. His breathing was uneven now, not from fear alone, but from something else, something pulling him closer. He reached out again. This time, he didn't hesitate. His fingers wrapped around the key. The moment he touched it, a strange warmth spread through his hand. Not painful, not comforting either, just unfamiliar. Aman frowned. The key didn't feel like metal. It felt heavier, as if it carried more than just weight. He turned it slightly under the dim light. There were markings on it, tiny engravings, almost too small to notice at first. Symbols, the same symbols as the one carved into the wall. Aman's heartbeat quickened. This wasn't random. The carving, the table, the key, they were connected. The wind outside suddenly stopped, abruptly, as if someone had turned it off. Aman froze. That kind of silence didn't feel natural. It felt controlled. Then he heard it, a faint sound, behind him, not from the door, not from outside, from inside the hut. Aman slowly turned, his eyes scanning every corner. The broken chair, the empty floor, the cracked ceiling. Nothing moved, but the sound came again, soft, rhythmic, almost like tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Aman's gaze dropped to the floor. There, near the far corner, a wooden panel, slightly raised, barely noticeable. The tapping was coming from beneath it. Aman swallowed hard. His grip on the key tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to step back, to leave, to run. But something stronger held him in place. Curiosity, or maybe something else. He walked toward the panel, each step slower than the last. The tapping grew louder, clearer. Tap, tap, tap. Aman knelt down, his hand hovering above the panel. The moment he brought the key closer, the tapping stopped. Instantly, Aman froze. His breath caught in his throat. The silence returned, heavier than before. Then something unexpected happened. The panel shifted, not violently, not suddenly, just slightly, as if it recognized something. Aman stared at it, his mind racing. Slowly, he pressed his hand against the panel. It moved, easily, too easily. He slid it aside. A dark space revealed itself beneath. Narrow, deep, hidden. Aman leaned closer, trying to see inside. But the darkness swallowed everything. Then, a faint glow appeared, not from above. From within, Aman blinked. The glow flickered once, then steadied. He reached down cautiously, his fingers brushing against something smooth. A box, small, wooden. But unlike the hut, it wasn't worn. It was polished, perfect. Aman pulled out slowly, placing it on the floor. His eyes moved instantly to the top. There it was, a lock, and it matched the key, perfectly. Aman felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't coincidence. The key wasn't just left there. It belonged here. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the lock. Opening it felt like crossing a line, a point of no return. But staying frozen wasn't an option either. Aman took a deep breath and inserted the key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft click. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Aman slowly lifted the lid. Inside, there was no gold, no money, no valuables, just paper, folded carefully, stacked neatly. Aman picked up the top sheet. His hands trembled slightly. He unfolded it and froze. The handwriting, it looked familiar, too familiar. His eyes moved across the first line. If you are reading this, you finally found your way back. Amon's breath stopped. Back? He frowned. Reading faster now. This place was never meant for strangers. It was always meant for you. His grip tightened on the paper. They were supposed to tell you, but they never do. They never remember. Aman shook his head, confusion flooding his thoughts. Who were they? And why did this feel personal? He turned the page. The next line hit harder. The house you were thrown out of was never truly yours, but this place always was. Aman stepped back, his chest rising and falling rapidly. That didn't make sense. None of this did, but the feeling, the strange pull since he entered the hut, it suddenly felt clearer. He wasn't just here by accident. He had been led here, slowly, unknowingly. His eyes dropped to the last line on the page, and this time, his entire body went still. Open the second compartment. Your real story begins there. Aman looked at the box again. Second compartment? He hadn't seen one, but now, looking closer, he noticed something. A faint line, hidden along the inner edge. A false bottom. Aman's fingers moved toward it, slowly, carefully, and just before he touched it, the hut shifted. Not the wind, not the floor, the entire hut, as if something beneath it had moved. Aman froze again. This time, the fear wasn't quiet. It was loud, clear, undeniable. He wasn't alone. And whatever else was here, it had been waiting longer than he had. Aman didn't breathe. Not fully, not normally. Just short, controlled breaths. The hut had moved. There was no doubt about it. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't fear playing tricks. He felt it, solid, real. His eyes slowly lifted from the box. Scanning the room again, everything looked the same. The broken chair, the dusty floor, the carved symbol on the wall. But something had changed. The air, it felt heavier, thicker, as if the space itself had tightened around him. Aman swallowed hard, his hand still hovering over the box. He knew one thing. Stopping now wouldn't help. Whatever this was, he was already part of it. Slowly, he pressed against a hidden edge inside the box. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a soft click. The bottom shifted. Aman lifted it carefully. Inside, there was something unexpected. Not paper, not objects. A mirror, small, perfectly round, and completely clean. Aman frowned. That didn't make sense. Why would someone hide a mirror? He picked it up slowly. The surface reflected his face. But something felt off. He looked closer. His reflection stared back. Still, unmoving, too still. Aman blinked, but the reflection didn't. His heart skipped. He moved slightly. A second later, the reflection followed. Delayed. Aman's grip tightened. That wasn't normal. He leaned closer. The reflection leaned too, but not at the same speed. It was like watching himself through a memory, not a mirror. Then the reflection smiled. Aman didn't. His entire body went cold. The mirror slipped slightly in his hand, but he didn't drop it. He couldn't. The reflection's eyes locked onto his, and then it spoke, not out loud, but he heard it, clear, direct, inside his head. You took longer than expected. Aman stumbled back. The mirror almost fell. His breathing turned sharp, uneven. No, he whispered, but the word felt weak, pointless. The reflection didn't change. It kept staring. Calm, patient. They always forget. But you came back. Aman shook his head. I've never been here before. Silence. Then the reflection tilted its head, exactly like him, but again delayed. That's what they all say at first. Aman's chest tightened. Something about those words felt wrong, deeply wrong. Who are you? He asked, his voice barely steady. The reflection smiled again, this time wider. I'm what you left behind. Aman froze. The hut creaked again, louder now. The walls seemed to stretch slightly, then settle. Aman looked around quickly. The symbol on the wall, it was changing, not disappearing, not moving, shifting. The carved lines slowly deepened. as if being carved again, right in front of him. Amon's pulse raced. "This isn't real," he muttered. But it felt real. Too real. The mirror grew warmer in his hand. "It's more real than anything you've known." Amon's eyes snapped back to it. The reflection was closer now. Much closer. Too close. "You weren't thrown out." Amon's breath caught. "You were sent back." The words hit harder than anything before. "Back? Where?" Aman whispered. The reflection's expression softened, almost sympathetic, "To where you started." Amon's mind raced. None of this made sense. And yet, something deep inside him reacted. A feeling, faint, distant, recognition. He shook his head violently. "No, I would remember." The reflection didn't argue. It simply watched. "Not yet." The hut shook again. Stronger this time. Dust fell from the ceiling. Aman stumbled slightly, catching himself against the table. The key had vibrated. Aman looked down. The key was glowing faintly now. The same glow he had seen inside the hidden space. "It's waking up." Aman's eyes widened. "What is—" The reflection's smile faded. For the first time, it looked serious. "The place that remembers you." Aman turned sharply. The floor beneath him shifted again. But this time it didn't stop. A low rumble filled the hut. Deep, ancient. The wooden panels began to separate, not breaking, opening, like something beneath them was rising. Aman stepped back quickly, the mirror still in his hand, the box still open on the floor. And now, a gap forming in the center of the hut. From within that gap, light emerged, not soft, not warm, sharp, bright, almost blinding. Aman shielded his eyes. The rumble grew louder, and then a shape began to rise. Not fully visible, not yet clear, but unmistakably there. Aman's heart pounded violently now. "What is that?" he whispered. The reflection answered instantly. "Your truth." Aman's breath stopped, and in that moment, he realized something terrifying. Whatever was coming up from beneath the hut, it already knew him. Aman couldn't move. Not forward, not back. The light from beneath the floor grew stronger, too bright, too sharp. He raised his arm to shield his eyes, but it didn't help much. The shape rising from the opening became clearer. At first, it looked like a platform. Flat, circular, made of something that didn't belong in an old wooden hut. Not wood, not stone, something smoother, older. It stopped just above the floor level, perfectly aligned, as if it had always been part of the hut. The rumbling faded, slowly, until there was only silence again. But this silence felt different. It wasn't empty. It was waiting. Aman lowered his arm, blinking against the brightness. On the surface of the platform, there were markings, symbols, the same ones from the wall, the same ones from the key, except now they were complete. Aman took a cautious step forward. The air felt heavier with each step, almost resisting him. The mirror in his hand grew warmer again. "You recognize it now, don't you?" The voice came from the reflection, calm, certain. Aman shook his head, but slower this time, less sure. "I don't." But his voice betrayed him, because something inside him was reacting. Not fear, not confusion. Memory, faint, broken, but there. Images flickered in his mind. A door, not like the one in the hut. Something larger, stronger, a symbol glowing, the same symbol. And a voice, not the reflection's voice. Another one. "You must return when it calls." Aman gasped softly. The memory vanished as quickly as it came. "What was that?" he whispered. The reflection didn't answer immediately. Instead, it watched him, carefully, a fragment, nothing more. Aman stepped closer to the platform. His feet felt heavier now, as if the ground itself was holding him back. But he didn't stop. He reached the edge. The symbols on the surface began to glow, faint at first, then brighter. They pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Aman's own heartbeat matched it, without him realizing. The key in his hand vibrated again, stronger this time. "Place it there." The reflection's voice was quieter now, but more intense. Aman hesitated. This will end it, right? He asked. The reflection tilted its head. It will begin it. Aman's chest tightened. That wasn't comforting. But something inside him had already decided. He stepped onto the platform. The moment his foot touched it, the light surged. The symbols flared brightly. Aman gasped. A sharp sensation shot through his body. Not pain, but pressure, like something pushing through him. Searching. The mirror slipped from his hand, falling onto the platform, but it didn't break. It landed softly, as if the surface had absorbed the impact. Aman barely noticed. His focus was on the key. His hand moved slowly, almost on its own, toward the center of the platform. There, a small indentation, perfectly shaped, waiting. Aman's fingers trembled. Do it. This time, the voice didn't come from the mirror. It came from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the air itself. Aman's breath shook. Then, he placed a key into the indentation. For a split second, nothing happened. Then everything did. The platform lit up completely. The symbols connected, forming patterns. Moving. Aman stumbled slightly, but couldn't step off. His feet felt locked in place. The light rose around him, wrapping him in a soft glow. The hut disappeared, not physically, but from his sight. All he could see now was light, and within it, shapes, memories. Not his childhood, not his home, something older. Aman saw himself, but not as he was now. Older, calmer, standing in the same hut, placing the same key, repeating the same action. Again and again, Aman's eyes widened. No, he whispered. The vision shifted. He saw different versions of himself, different clothes, different times, but always the same place, the same hut, the same key. Now you see it. The voice returned, not from the mirror, not from the hut, from within him. Aman's breath became shallow. This is a loop. The word fell heavy. Real, not a loop. A pause, a return. The light pulsed again, stronger. Aman felt something unlock inside his mind. Not fully, but enough. Fragments connected. The stories he had heard as a child. The strange feeling when he entered the hut. The familiarity he couldn't explain. It all pointed to one truth. He had been here before. Not once. Not twice. Many times. Aman's knees weakened. But why? He whispered. The answer came instantly. Because you chose it. Aman's heart stopped for a moment. I would never choose this. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure anymore. The light around him shifted, and one final image appeared, clearer than the rest. Aman standing in front of someone, not fully visible, just a silhouette, and his own voice, speaking words he didn't remember saying. If I forget, send me back. I need to finish it. The vision shattered. The light dimmed slightly. Aman stood frozen, the truth pressing down on him. He hadn't been sent here by accident. He had asked for this. And now, whatever he had started was waiting to be completed. The platform pulsed one more time, and a new path began to form in front of him, not inside the hut, but beyond it, somewhere deeper, somewhere he had never seen, but somehow remembered. And this time, there was no turning back. The light slowly faded. Not suddenly, not violently, just gently, like something finishing a breath. Aman stood on the platform, unable to move for a few seconds. His body felt light, but his mind felt unbearably heavy. The hut was back, but it didn't feel the same anymore. It looked the same. The broken chair, the dusty walls, the carved symbol. But now, everything felt like a memory instead of a place. In front of him, the path that had formed was still there, stretching beyond the hut, leading into darkness. But not ordinary darkness. Something deeper. Something familiar. Aman stepped down slowly. His legs felt unstable, like he was adjusting to reality again. The mirror lay still on the platform behind him. No reflection. No movement. Just silence. Then a soft voice echoed. Not from outside. Not from the mirror. But from everywhere at once. You remember now. Aman closed his eyes for a moment, and this time he didn't resist. Memories came fully, not fragments, not flashes, everything. He saw it, the first time, the real first time. He hadn't been thrown out of a house. He had stepped out of something else. Something he once called a beginning, a place not built of walls, but of choices, a structure that didn't exist in one world. But between them, the hut wasn't abandoned. It was a checkpoint, a return point, a place where people who lost their way came back to remember. And Aman, he had been here before, many times, each time forgetting, each time restarting, because he had chosen it, not once, but repeatedly. His purpose wasn't to escape the house. It was to forget the truth, so he could relive the path until he finally accepted it. Aman opened his eyes again, slowly. The voice spoke once more. You were never kicked out. You exited a life you no longer belonged to. Aman's throat tightened. Then what am I supposed to do? He asked quietly. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It felt complete. Then the answer came. Continue forward, this time without forgetting. Aman looked at the dark path ahead. For the first time, it didn't feel like fear. It felt like recognition, like something waiting patiently for him. The hut behind him began to fade slightly, not disappearing, just becoming less important. Aman took a step forward, then another. With each step, the weight inside him shifted. Not gone, but aligned, as if everything he had lived finally had direction. He stopped once, just once, and looked back at the hut, not as a prison, not as a mystery, but as a reminder, a place where he returned every time he forgot who he was. Then he turned forward again and walked into the darkness. The voice faded, but one last sentence remained in his mind. Clear, calm, final. You are not lost. You are looping closer to the truth. And with that, Aman disappeared into the path, not as someone kicked out, not as someone abandoned, but as someone finally remembering why he began.